I could just speak to myself then, now, and just try to give myself some of the information that I've now got at my fingertips. It's you're making your life so much more difficult than it needs to be by not just working with suppliers who are already set up to dropship, who are based in the UK and who are familiar with the model.
Where would you suggest people start, Lewis, in terms of finding their own UK suppliers?
When I first started, if I was talking to my former self now, knowing what I know now and having sent over 4.68, I think it is £1 million worth of sales now through to dropshipping suppliers, I'm very confident now that if I were to pick up the phone to a supplier.
There was a switch in my mind when you taught me, actually, we need to go directly to the brands in the UK and cut out the middleman of a directory.
Your profit per sale is much higher, not making £4 or £5 profit on a £20 candle, instead making £400 or £500 profit on a £2,000 sale, for example.
If you want to build something that's long-term and that you can stand behind and not have to work on every day and continually find new products and a new sort of trending product to go after, I think you're much better off going down that long-term sustainable business of the home turf advantage.
In my situation, at least, I wanted to work with suppliers who could stand behind the quality of the products that were being sold and could offer fast delivery times.
And that will literally be music to the supplier's ears. When you explain how you're going to be offering so much value to them, this is how you're going to do it, and you're coming from a professional email address, you've got a professional phone number set up, you've got a limited company in place. All of those tips you've been through there, Lewis, are huge. It's going to give you so much greater chance. To take away from this episode, Lewis, can we give people almost like a walkthrough, like some action steps that people can take to sign their first UK suppliers?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you need to do is welcome to the Dropship Unlocked podcast, your key to unlocking the secrets of high-ticket dropshipping. I'm Lewis Smith, founder of Dropship Unlocked, and with me is our client success coach, James Eardley. Now, when we're not recording podcast episodes, we're running our own e-commerce businesses and helping aspiring entrepreneurs launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. So if you're ready to learn how to build your own 6 or even 7-figure business, pick up a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage, whether you're looking to replace your income or launch a side hustle. I wrote this book as a roadmap to help you launch a low-maintenance, high-profit e-commerce business that gives you the freedom to spend more time with your family, travel the world, and work on your own terms. Ready to join us? Visit htabook.com to get your copy today. Now sit back, relax, and let's unlock your potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Hello and welcome to an episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast with me, James Eardley, and I'm joined again by serial entrepreneur and founder of Dropship Unlocked, Lewis Smith. So today is a huge topic. When you consider going into dropshipping, you want to leave your 9-to-5, work and live from anywhere in the world. One of the first obstacles you might hit is how do you actually source products? How do you actually sign suppliers for high quality products that will deliver to your customers the next day? Well, we want to dive in today and go really deep into how do you actually find these suppliers so you can be confident that you're working with high quality suppliers from day one. So, Lewis, this is a big topic, isn't it?
It definitely is. Yeah, great to be back recording another episode and covering such a key topic, because this is one that we get a lot of questions about from podcast listeners and people on our email list, always asking about UK suppliers, because obviously that's a key part of our home turf advantage strategy. If you're going to be able to offer next day delivery to customers, then you're likely going to need to work with UK based suppliers. So I'm really keen to share my insights and our tactics for how we do that for people listening and try and help them find and sign high quality UK suppliers. So yeah, it's funny. I mean, if I go back to the beginning of my journey with dropshipping and when I first kind of found out about the concept of dropshipping, my immediate path led me to, okay, I need to look at things like AliExpress and Alibaba and find suppliers from China. And I remember sending off an email to a supplier in China at night on my phone, and I think it was through the Alibaba website. And I'd spent ages composing this email talking about how I wanted to work with them to source stock. And I think I don't even really think I understood the fact that I'd need to order a minimum order quantity and it wouldn't technically be dropshipping because the items would then be sent and I'd need to then store them. But it was just that communication with the supplier that I thought, okay, this is my big shot. Like, these are the suppliers that are going to change my life. And I think if I had known then what I know now, I'd really tell myself, don't go down that rabbit hole, because, I was so excited for their reply the next day. But if I could look back and think, well, do you realize what would have come of that? If they'd said, yes, we can work with you, yes, we can supply you, we'll send you a load of low quality products over from China in a container that you then need to store, and half of them will be unsaleable because there'll be quality issues that we didn't foresee, and you won't make any profit on them, and you'll have a huge customs import tax duty to pay when they hit the border, and there'll be a long delay because the Suez Canal will get blocked, or there'll be some global situation where we can't ship stuff. Just so many things. And I think looking back now, if I realized that stuff, I'd have made very different decisions. And there was another supplier, a UK candle supplier or manufacturer, and I was considering that as a niche at one point. And I thought, it could make premium candles. I could work with a UK supplier who pours the wax and puts them into a nice jar and everything they'd ship them out. And I remember having a conversation with this lady and telling her about our big plans and what we were going to do. And she was like, well, we can't drop ship them, but we can send them to you and you can then send them on. And I was kind of piecing this together in my head thinking, I'm a real business owner. Like, this could all work and come together. And again, if I could just speak to myself now and just try to give myself some of the information that I've now got at my fingertips, you're making your life so much more difficult than it needs to be by not just working with suppliers who are already set up to dropship, who are based in the UK and who are familiar with the model. And using the home turf advantage model, selling much, much higher ticket products so that your profit per sale is much higher. Not making £4 or £5 profit on a £20 candle, instead making £400 or £500 profit on a £2,000 sale, for example. So yeah, I think it's just when you're trying to get suppliers from China, you're really fishing in an overfished pond there. You are just another person who's trying their luck with an AliExpress or an Alibaba supplier when everyone else is doing the same. Instead, maybe if you just look over and realize there's another pond over there with much bigger fish in it, it's the same amount of effort. You just have to choose where to go and search for those suppliers. So yeah, today's episode will try and break down a bit more of the tactics about how that works. But that was my own introduction into the process of finding suppliers.
We're fortunate enough to have been on both sides of the story. So we've both done the AliExpress model, which is sort of first introduced to you when you start to learn about dropshipping. And then we realized that really wasn't going to be a long-term sustainable business model. So we've seen the dark side, we've made those mistakes, and now we're able to be on the other side, having found UK suppliers that are high quality. And now we can talk to you about how to actually just go straight to those high quality suppliers and leave out all of the mistakes that we've made in the past already. You'll save yourself a lot of headaches by doing that. So I think for me, when I first realized that dropshipping was about, and I realized that I needed suppliers, you're first introduced to AliExpress. And so you expect it to be like a directory of suppliers that there might also be in the UK that you can use to find suppliers. So that's what I first tried to do. I tried to go to Google. I tried to find UK suppliers, that is just like a directory that I could find a big list. And those types of things, although they exist, that's actually the exact type of suppliers we would now, recommend that you avoid at all costs, really. And there was a switch in my mind when you taught me, actually, we need to go directly to the brands in the UK and cut out the middleman of a directory. So that gives us a lot to talk about and how to actually go into and find those brands. So where would you suggest people start, Lewis, in terms of finding their own UK suppliers?
Yeah, well, the point you made there about not going to a directory is key, because the best suppliers who focus just on making their products as best they can don't deal with things like SEO. Then that's not their priority. Whereas the people who want to rank highly on Google, which is where you will probably be searching for these, will be the people like the wholesalers who have a vested interest in you finding them, signing up to a fee to become one of their customers, and then them giving you access to the suppliers, but taking a big cut of the margin out of the process. And often the best suppliers won't even go on those directories anyway. So you're paying for access to mediocre suppliers and losing a lot of your margin by doing so. So it's a really good point about not going to directories, even though they will be seemingly the lowest hanging fruit. They'll be the ones ranking at the top of Google. They'll be the ones luring you in with this great offer of we can come in and be a retailer. We'll build your website even for you. I've seen custom package built websites where they'll say, we'll even get you up and running. Do you really think if it was that easy and you could just pay a wholesaler website to build you a business and then just click your fingers and just be like, right, we're up and running, profitable? There's obviously a downside to that. And the big downside is lack of quality suppliers and low margins. So yeah, in terms of identifying the right suppliers, I think before you even do that, there are a few crucial steps that have to come before we get to the point of starting to work with good suppliers. And the most important one is to decide the type of dropshipping that you want to do. right? So after trying the AliExpress model that we've both used, or it doesn't even have to be AliExpress, it's the shipping products from abroad and then marking them up and trying to, make the difference based on what you bought them for from a supplier and what you're selling them for in the UK, after all the taxes, the shipping, the transport, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think after the taxes, the shipping, the charges, it becomes clear that in my situation, at least, I wanted to work with suppliers who could stand behind the quality of the products that were being sold and could offer fast delivery times. Because I knew if I couldn't have the former, so if the supplier was of low quality or had no accountability about product quality, then very quickly my brand's reputation would be tarnished and the business would be no longer. Likewise, if the products were great, but they took a month to get there, customers would be very unhappy for a different reason. And again, brand's reputation would be no longer, and people would just do chargebacks and whatever and demand refunds. So it had to be a balance of the two. And so it's like, when you're at school and you're learning to drive, and one of your friends always gets this like modified car, and they get kind of an older car and they soup it up and they add all the bells and whistles to it. And there's always one cool kid that has all the stuff on their car. And I remember my parents were really sensible with me, and they were like, no, you should get something reliable, get something a bit newer, but it doesn't need to be exciting. So I ended up with this like boring but newer car. And I remember that I was looking at my other friends with all these cool souped up cars, but those were the ones that started to go wrong. Those are the ones that started to break down. They were unreliable. They looked cool on the surface level and they were flashy and, fun and exciting. But then they were the ones in like the hard shoulder calling their parents at midnight, asking to be picked up because the car had broken down. Whereas mine was like simple. I guess it's just like understated, but reliable and would go the distance. And those are the two types of dropshipping that we're looking at right now. One's like the cool model that you'll see the guys on TikTok, like standing in front of their Lambos talking about making 1 million sales a day. And the other one is just the quiet, understated entrepreneur who makes 500 grand a year running a very, very simple business using UK suppliers to UK customers and makes £400 or £500 in profit per order. So you then have to ask yourself, which one do you want to be in? The one where it could all come crashing down at any minute and it's built on a bit of a house of cards, or the one that's just a normal, stable, long-term defensible business with a great reputation? I know which one I wanted to have. And so that's part of the reason why we now teach the home turf advantage model, where we work with UK suppliers.
And it's a bit of a no-brainer. I think if you want to build something that's long-term and that you can stand behind and not have to work on every day and continually find new products and a new sort of trending product to go after, I think you're much better off going down that long-term sustainable business of the home turf advantage, which is what I've done now as well, Lewis. So with the home turf advantage, as the name suggests, we're going to be working with domestic suppliers. So if you're selling into the UK, that's UK suppliers. So Lewis, then how does somebody actually go about finding the right UK suppliers to work with?
Yeah, well, the great news is that once you make that decision, there are literally thousands of UK suppliers that will be happy to dropship high ticket products to customers in the UK for you with next day delivery. Now, they might not refer to it as dropshipping, and they might not think of themselves as dropshipping suppliers, but that doesn't matter, right? It doesn't change anything. The reason we're called Dropship Unlocked isn't because we want to go and lead with the dropshipping term when we speak to suppliers. It's because we know that that's what people will be looking for and therefore will find us, right? So it's a bit of a dirty word sometimes in the retail industry. People say, oh no, we don't dropship, because it's like associated with this flash in the pan, gimmicky, bought a load of cheap quality products, didn't have any care for customer service, and then just disappeared after making a bit of profit. That's not going to be us, right? So direct to consumer dispatch is an alternative way of explaining it, or a non-stocking retailer is another way of explaining it. So the first step then is you need to actually choose the niche and decide on the niche that you want to be focused on, so that you can go and search for the right dropshipping suppliers. Because if you don't have your niche selected, you'll be overwhelmed with thousands of different suppliers selling all kinds of stuff. You can't let the availability of suppliers dictate your business. You can't just look to suppliers and be like, okay, what can I sell? All right, I'll build a business around that. You have to, well, I mean, you don't have to, but if you're using our model, the Home Turf Advantage, we build our businesses based on data. We look to validate a niche market by looking inside week 2 of our masterclass program for the presence of other dropshipping retailers in that niche. So in that market, we want to know that there are other people like us, non-stocking retailers, people that rely on dropshipping suppliers, already operating, making money, and have been around for a while, right? Because then we can look and say, okay, who are they using as their suppliers? Which brands are they working with? Because whichever brands they're working with are clearly okay with the concept of dropshipping. Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling their products, right? So this is all kind of, there's hours of video content inside week 2 of our masterclass where we kind of go through like how you actually define a niche, but that's kind of separate. So this conversation is about suppliers. So once you have your niche that's validated and you know works with dropshipping suppliers in the UK, and you know that suppliers within that niche are happy to dropship, then it becomes a case of, well, we have proof of concept. The niche isn't a ghost town where there are no other dropshipping retailers there, and we can then head into it knowing that we're not a pioneer taking all the risk. We just have to take a proven route, carve out our slice of the market, speak to those suppliers. And I mean, I would go and meet those suppliers face to face when I first started. I would literally go to them, drive to them, go and buy them a coffee, sit down, chat and say, I know you're working with other retailers like us who don't hold stock. We want to do the same. We'd love to work with you. Think like we're going to be here for a long time in the UK market. We could grow your brand significantly, add so much value to you, get you market share over your competition. Like there are all kinds of things that we would say that make the suppliers want to work with us rather than trying to kind of, convince them or twist their arm.
And that's crucial. It's so important to say the right things when you first approach a supplier. And everything you've mentioned there, obviously, if you don't choose a niche before you start to try and find dropshipping suppliers, you'll be having such a broad range that you don't really know what you're looking for. If you went to Google, as we discussed, and just search for UK dropshipping suppliers, and you don't know which type of products you'll sell, you'd end up with having such a broad range of products that then you lose that advantage that we have as specialist retailers, where we can create a website around a certain niche and speak directly to customers. If you go in with a really broad store, you lose that from the very start.
Yeah, exactly. It comes back to even things like conversion rate. Once you've built your store, say you've got like, an office chair, a desk, and then you've got like a barbecue, and then there's like a fridge, and then there's some like a surfboard. Like when someone lands on that store, they're going to be like, what is this mishmash of like weird products that are just unrelated? I feel like this company are just selling whatever they can get their hands on. And so you will make sales, but at a lower conversion rate in all likelihood than if you just became the barbecue shop or the surfboard shop or the office equipment shop, right? So that's the beauty of finding a niche. You find a niche where there are already retailers who are dropshipping, who are using the dropshipping model, right? So dropshipping suppliers who are sending out products for them. And you make sure that you've found a niche where there are at least, say, 5, 6, 7, ideally 10 plus dropshipping suppliers that on day one you can start working with because they're already happy to dropship. You're not going in there convincing them, being like, well, there's this interesting business model that I want to pitch to you on, like, you don't have to do anything on, and that can work. And we have pitched to suppliers and convinced them. But do you really want to be starting your business on the back foot where it depends on you convincing suppliers to do something they've never done before? Or do you just want to slot into place and be like, you know how you work with XYZ retailers? Yeah, we're like them, but we'll be even better. Such a different conversation, right?
Right, exactly. It's a shortcut to finding suppliers that are waiting for you to call. If you go directly to suppliers that you can clearly see are already dropshipping by going through the existing retailers' brands list on their website, then you have that head start straight away that you can be confident as soon as you give them a call, it's going to be very quick to get them over the line. And something that's really important, especially with your first store, I think, is to really pick up on that low-hanging fruit initially. So high-quality suppliers, but still that they're working already with a retailer that's dropshipping, so you'll be able to get a yes very quickly. And that will then build your momentum until eventually, we're not saying that you'll never work with suppliers that don't dropship already. However, we'd suggest that let's get some suppliers on board first by going through the other direct retailers list, and then go ahead and you can broaden out your list of suppliers after that. So now we've identified the potential suppliers. We've found a list using direct competitors' websites. How are we actually going to go about and contact those suppliers?
Yeah, so when you do reach out to suppliers, it's all about professionalism and sending the right message to potential suppliers. And so your first contact, ideally, in an ideal scenario, it would be face-to-face, because that's the best way you can do it, right? Going and looking someone in the eyes, shaking their hand, and having face-to-face contact with them. They will realize that you are serious, that you're honest, that you're going to look after their brand's reputation, that you're not there to waste their time, that you really are a real trustworthy person, you're not some scammer, and they'll take you so much more seriously. So I appreciate that for a lot of people puts them out of their comfort zone, but that is where the magic happens, remember? So that is why it's worth doing. The next best thing, because I know that we can't always be like driving all over the UK and getting trains everywhere to go and meet suppliers all the time. I appreciate that. Is probably Zoom, right? Or phone call if you can't organize a Zoom or a video call with them. And so in this initial outreach, you'd want to introduce your business, your plans, how you can increase their sales, and always remember what's in it for them. So it sounds harsh, but they don't really care about you. They care about them and what lies for their future, right? As a business. So you've got to just pander to that in a sense, right? Remember, suppliers get a lot of inquiries, and you have to stand out by being clear, concise and professional, and show them that you're serious about doing business, but also make sure that you're ready to answer the inevitable questions that they will have for you. Now, there are lots of these. We've actually collated all of them into a FAQ kind of question template list that we've got inside week 4 of our program. But you make sure that you're prepared with questions about things like pricing, for example, when they say, so how are you going to manage pricing? Or, you might want to ask them, what's your lead time? How quickly can you get items dispatched? What's your return policy? What should we do if a customer wants to return an item? Go into it thinking of it as a 50-50 partnership. You've got to make sure that it's beneficial for them. And it's just about making sure that they really understand the benefit of working with us and that what we can do for them.
And that makes it a really exciting phone call for them to pick up. If you're straight away talking about all of the benefits that you're going to bring to them. And we'll literally be sending tens of thousands and then eventually hundreds of thousands of pounds of sales every month to this supplier. So if you remember that and the opportunity that you're bringing to that supplier when you pick up the phone, that will change your mindset around picking up the phone. You're no longer asking somebody for a favor. You're no longer begging for them to give you the access to their product list. You're going knowing that it's 50-50 and knowing that you hold a real key to a lot more sales for them. And that will give you the confidence to pick up the phone, really enjoy that conversation, and you'll sign a lot more suppliers by going in with that mindset. So we've had that conversation on the phone, ideally, or in person is even better. And, clearly they're interested. How do we actually sign a supplier? How do we get them over the line?
Yeah, so I think just picking up on something you just said there about making sure that they realize we will be sending them hundreds of thousands of pounds of sales in due course. When I first started, if I was talking to my former self now, I think my former self would have been like, yeah, but will I really? Will I? There's this seed of doubt in my mind about, yeah, but am I actually going to succeed at this? Can I do this? I'm saying I can, and I kind of, there's this guide saying that we can do it, but how do I know I can? Knowing what I know now and having sent over 4.68, I think it is, million pounds worth of sales now through to dropshipping suppliers, I'm very confident now that if I were to pick up the phone to a supplier, it's almost like I'm interviewing them for whether they want to be one of my suppliers, because I'm going to be sending some serious traffic to them because we run ads and spend a serious amount of money sending traffic, making sales profitably across all of the markets that we're in. So making sure that they understand that actually there is some weight to your offer here, and it's not just a case of like, oh, please, try your luck with us, give us a chance. It's more, with this train's leaving, whether or not you're on it. And so if you want to benefit from the upside of this, then I would suggest you become one of our retailers, one of our suppliers ready for the launch. Now, obviously, I wouldn't use that kind of language in your initial calls because it's going to come across as arrogant potentially, and you'll blow your chances. But I think you need to have that belief deep in your mind so that you're sure enough of yourself when you speak to them that you can be confident. And that when they say, okay, go on then, talk me through what you're going to do for us, and you're put on the spot, you're like, okay, consult the FAQ list, I'm ready to go. So I think that's the thing. And once you've explained your business and how it works and how you'd like to work with them, ask for the account opening forms there and then. If they're happy and they say, yeah, sounds good, don't linger and be like, okay, so what else should we talk about? And, go off on a tangent. Just get the job done and just say, well, okay, great. Can you send me through the account opening forms and price list and your photos and everything, and we'll get everything uploaded today. And then just don't talk anymore. Just wait. And hopefully they'll say, yeah, what's your email address? You tell them your email, you send it through. And once those are signed and you're happy with the terms and the prices, get everything uploaded. Typically, we then go back to suppliers and just say to them, like, is there anything you can do on the margins? Because often they'll give you their worst, pricing first of all. And having had hundreds of these conversations now, the answer back from them is usually, well, you show us some commitment first, you show us some sales, and then we'll talk about prices. And so then we say, okay, great, we'll get a call booked in for, 2-3 months time, make sure that it's in the diary, go through, review the sales that you've sent them in the meantime, and show them that you're serious and say, now, can you see what I meant about this? The more margin you now give us, the more we'll be able to spend on ads to acquire new customers and grow your brand. So yeah, the question then becomes to them, do you want to just be another one of the brands that, sits at the bottom of our website and we don't really send much traffic to? Or do you want to be front and center, the ones that we heavily market and really send you a lot of sales? Because if so, we'll need a higher margin in order to achieve that.
And it's so powerful. It really puts you in the power position, and it makes those phone calls enjoyable when you know what you're standing for, when you know what you're offering to people. Such great advice. So what are the sort of common mistakes that you see people make, or the ones that you made when you first started contacting suppliers?
Yeah, there are lots of things that we see people make. I mean, not so much in the program because we guide people through these steps sequentially. So I'm thinking more about like people who email us in who aren't going through our training, who we realize, that's why we have this step in the program. So for example, things like not having a limited company in place would be a big mistake if you're going to call suppliers and just try and operate as a sole trader. The big suppliers are not going to take you seriously if you don't have a limited company details that you can use. Like if you turn up with a mobile number and say, yeah, so here's our company number, and then read out your mobile number. Again, not very professional, right? You need a company mobile number. We use a service called Circle Loop, which we can link in the show notes of this, which is a great service that we've used for all of our stores that you can have captures the voicemail. You can access it on your phone. You can have team members, VAs on there. Really easy, really cheap, easy to use. Gives you a UK 0800 number or 0300 number or whatever it is. And yeah, very good service to use. A professional email address. So again, if you turn up and you say, hi, it's, lewis123@gmail.com is my email address, they're not going to take you seriously because they're going to think, well, why do you not even have a professional email address set up? So it's just all these subtle symbols of trust and credibility, and also just knowing the niche keywords and the terminology within the niche, because I'd say it's important to have done your research into not only a supplier before you call them. So you can say, hey, I really like your products XYZ. I love the fact that it does this feature. That's really cool. Our customers would love it on our store at lewis'sbarbecues.com. We'd love to feature it. Could you tell me a bit more about that? Why is it so popular? What are your fastest moving units at the moment? Like that kind of stuff. That they can tell that you've taken an interest in them and that you're not just going through your list, just calling more suppliers and just generically reading out a script, right? And so, I think having your frequently asked question responses ready pre-call as well, making sure that, if they ask you things like, okay, so if you did need to take some stock, how would you do it? We've got all of the answers to this stuff about if they said, how would you take a return? All of that stuff's covered inside our week 4 script, where we give you all the FAQs and the types of questions that we've encountered hundreds of times from thousands of suppliers. And just making sure that, you are prepared and know the answers to those, so that you're just prepared for, a whole load of questions that a supplier might throw at you. We've got hours of content on that inside the masterclass. So you can kind of adapt those FAQ responses to suit your individual business needs, because that's going to be different for everybody. But I think also making sure that you have basic knowledge of your marketing efforts and how the whole thing fits together. Because if they say, okay, yeah, we'll work with you, what's your plan then? And you say, I don't know, I haven't thought that far ahead yet. That's not going to do much for the trust meter of the supplier with your relationship with them, right? Whereas if instead you said, well, we'll probably start off with some conversion rate optimization, getting your products uploaded onto our website with high resolution images that are all optimized for SEO and speed, page speed. Then we'll launch a Google Performance Max campaign and probably a retargeting campaign using meta ads. Then we'll probably follow up with some email marketing using Klaviyo, boost your brand visibility, really try and expand the market and win market share over your competitor X, Y, and Z. That a supplier's ears are going to have pricked up if they hear that, and they're going to think, wow, these guys know what they're doing, and I definitely want to be part of this, because they're you can almost sense the apprehension of this train's leaving the station, you better get on board, right? And that's how we want them to feel. We want them to have FOMO if they're not on board. So yeah, that's kind of the way that I would treat it.
And that will literally be music to the supplier's ears. When you explain how you're going to be offering so much value to them, this is how you're going to do it. And you're coming from a professional email address, you've got a professional phone number set up, you've got a limited company in place. All of those tips you've been through there, Lewis, are huge. It's going to give you so much greater chance. Think about these suppliers. They might be receiving, every day requests from people to work with them. You want to think about how you can stand out. How can you show that professionalism? Because first impressions really do make a difference when you contact suppliers. And if you think about the first 10 seconds that they're going to get with you, they're going to see the phone number that comes up, and they're going to think about the way that you've introduced yourself on the phone. That first 10 seconds is their first impression. And from that, they'll start to get an idea of whether they want to pass you on to the person that actually opens accounts for people, or whether they'll give you a gatekeeper response. So if you've got that email address set up, if you've got the right phone number, and you can say about your limited company within the first 10 seconds of a phone call, that's going to be the first, open of the door. That's going to open the key to get through that gatekeeper response.
Yeah, exactly. It reminds me, there's a funny guy that I keep seeing his YouTube videos, actually. I think I can't remember his name. I'm going to look him up. He's called like the UK's most hated sales trainer. And so he's really funny. He wears like a red hat. And he has the best videos I've ever seen on getting past gatekeepers. His name's Benjamin Dennehy. He's a funny guy to watch. And yeah, his tips on getting past gatekeepers are incredible. Like, you watch him do it live and how he calls with such confidence and assurance, and we'll be like, oh yeah, hi, can I speak to John? Thanks very much. And they're just, it's almost like the gatekeeper's so like shocked by the directness of the approach that they just put him through, even though he's never spoken to John, the head of the company. And then by the time they get through, he'll then say, oh, John, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm like, this is a cold call, I'm pitching or whatever. And obviously that's not the conversation we would then be having, but it's just his concept of being able to get past gatekeepers. And it's just his ability to really get past the gatekeeper and straight to the decision maker that I find most incredible. So yeah, worth a watch a few of his videos.
Definitely. And we can learn a lot from that. We see a lot of success from masterclass members that have a sales background, because there is some overlapping skills there in terms of signing suppliers and sales. But even if you haven't got any sales background, I mean, having a script to go through while you're on the phone is going to make such a huge difference as well. Okay, so lots of tips there, Lewis, and hopefully we've given you inspiration to go ahead and pick up the phone and speak to suppliers and get them signed. But to take away from this episode, Lewis, can we give people almost like a walkthrough, like some action steps that people can take to sign their first UK suppliers?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you need to do is really decide the niche that you've got. So step one, go and research the market, look at things like keyword volume, look at seasonality, look at trends, look at supplier availability, look at presence of other dropshipping retailers. Like, all of these things should determine which market you go into, so that the process of signing UK suppliers becomes a breeze. Because if you're kind of fixated on one niche that hasn't been validated through our 9 different criteria that we have in week 2 of the program, it's going to be really difficult to then try and say, okay, now let me try and sign suppliers in a niche where dropshipping suppliers are not prevalent. Do you see what I mean? So I think doing that first, then assuming you've got that, it's going to other direct retailers, direct competitor retailers, so other people who are running dropshipping businesses in the UK who are using the same model as you, not carrying stock. Then it's looking at the brands that they're selling. It's figuring out what are the highest selling brands, and then it's going to those brands directly using some kind of ninja techniques that we use on Google, like phrase match searches or reverse image searches, or all kinds of stuff that you can do to try to figure out where those suppliers are at the source. If they're global, for example, if they're in America or Australia, then that's fine. You can call the head office there, say, who do I deal with in the UK at the distribution level? Who's your official UK distributor that can dropship? And then it's calling those suppliers, or ideally going to see them face to face and talking through the stuff we just talked through, explaining what you can do for them, getting those account forms, signing up those contracts, uploading the products to your store, and then trying to set up the process so that it can be automated, and that whenever you get orders through, those get auto fulfilled through to your new supplier, who can then send them out, and the whole thing kind of happens without you. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's the process. That's the short, like, if we're doing a podcast version of how you do this. For the longer version of 30 hours of video walkthrough over the shoulder content, obviously the DSU masterclass is literally designed to get you to that point. But yeah, that's the short version.
Yeah, so much there, so much advice, practical tips there, Lewis. So thank you for that. Obviously, we can't, or you wouldn't want to listen to a 30-hour episode of us talking all about how to contact suppliers. But of course, that's why the masterclass training is there, for people to go through in depth all of the FAQ responses and everything that they'd need to get to sign those suppliers. So for people to continue learning and to really get to grips with finding and signing high quality UK suppliers, what's the best resource that we can point people towards?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the niche selection part is going to be key for this. So if this has been a bit of a whirlwind and you really just need the step-by-step walkthrough, then we've laid this all out in my book, The Home Turf Advantage. So you can pick up a copy of that book at HTAbook.com today. Just a quick heads up, if you'd like to share your questions, stories, successes, or challenges, you can email us directly at podcast@dropshipunlocked.com. And you never know, we might even feature you on the next podcast episode.
Also, if you want access to today's show notes or any of the resources we've mentioned in the episode today, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast. We also have a small favour to ask of you. If you enjoyed the show so far, if you could take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice.
You wouldn't believe how much your reviews help us grow the podcast. We'll even read out some of our favourites on the next episode. So if you want to be featured on the show, please do go ahead and leave us a review today. Thanks so much for your support. We really couldn't do it without you, and we absolutely love hearing what you think of the podcast.
Okay, now let's answer a question that's come in from a listener. And this week, the question has come in from David. Remember, if you want your questions answered on the podcast, all you need to do is email podcast@dropshipunlocked.com, and we'll read it out and answer it on a podcast episode coming up. So, David's question. David has asked in a YouTube comment, could you delve more into the Google Ads topic? So, quite a broad question that from David, but I think that is definitely one that we can do justice by answering it with a whole podcast episode. So, David, look out for that. In an upcoming episode, we're going to talk about and go into depth about how we use Google Ads to drive traffic and drive sales for our high-ticket dropshipping stores. But for now, Lewis, so that we can provide some answers and some value straight away, could you give us a bit of an idea as to why we use Google Ads in the first place, so that we've really set the foundations for that episode that's coming up in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for your question, David. So Google Ads are pretty powerful in that they are a way that we can offer intent-based advertising to customers. Now, what I mean by that is if you think of a customer who's browsing on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, they are going through a social browsing experience. They're looking at funny cat videos. They're looking at friends, families, photos of babies, photos of people's meals. And then suddenly they get hit with an ad for a product. Now, on Google, typically people aren't there to just browse. They're looking for something. And so what that means is that they're further down the buying funnel or intent funnel. They're more ready to make that purchase, that informed decision, right? So what that equates to is if you were selling barbecues, they might be searching for best barbecue to buy, or they might have even decided the barbecue they want to buy and now be searching for it by the brand and the product name or even model number, like the Outback 225X barbecue, right? Whatever, making the model up, but they're looking for the product specifically. Now, what that means, because there's a higher buying intent, it means that typically you can acquire customers for a cheaper cost per sale than you can on things like Meta ads, Facebook and Instagram. And so with that, you'll get a higher conversion rate and therefore a lower cost per sale, which means that the overall profitability and scalability of the marketing campaigns is higher because we can continue to do that. We've got enough profit from that sale to keep, say, for example, you generate a sale at £2,000, you make £600 net profit and it costs you £40 to acquire that customer, £30, something like that. That's fairly typical. Then you can make those sales all day long because you're making like, what's that, £560, £570 net profit on every single sale you make after the cost of advertising is removed. Okay, so you could just keep doing that all day long. So the other benefit of Google Ads is that it's really high quality traffic because it's really powerful targeting and retargeting capabilities. But it often means that the users who do come to your site are more likely to be interested in the high ticket products because they've already searched for it and you're not trying to kind of pull someone off of a social media platform and try and convince them to then make that purchase. So yeah, that's kind of top line of why we use Google Ads, how we use it. We use things like performance max campaigns, search campaigns, video campaigns, obviously YouTube ads, things like that, display network campaigns, like all types of different strategies within Google Ads. But as a kind of a high level answer as to why we use that platform and how it works well, that's it for you. For the longer answer, we'll have to do another podcast episode on that, as James said.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm looking forward to that episode. We'll go really deep into that, but hopefully that's been helpful, David. And if you're like David and you want us to explain a little bit more about how we use Google Ads to drive sales, then look out for an upcoming episode in the next few weeks. Okay, now we want to highlight as well a lovely listener review. So one of my favorite parts of the episode. And this review today has come in from Michael. So Michael has said, "We'd just like to say thanks for putting the podcast out there to the world, to people like myself. Really enjoying listening to the pair review, and I'm going to start my own e-commerce business within the next few months." There we go. Hopefully we've inspired you there, Michael. Thank you so much for that kind review.
Thank you so much for your review, Michael. We're so glad to hear that you've been enjoying the podcast. If you'd like to contribute to our podcast, it's quite simple. All you need to do is leave us a review on the podcast platform you prefer, or if you're more into YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment on this video, and you could hear your own words featured in our upcoming episode. And as we draw to a close today, why not share this episode with a friend? Your adventure into e-commerce could just be the spark of inspiration that a friend or relative needs right now. And sharing this podcast might just ignite that crucial conversation about signing UK suppliers.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you found the discussion both inspiring and entertaining.
If you're ready to begin your own high-ticket dropshipping journey, then here's what to do next. I've taken all of the years of my own experience, both in running my e-commerce businesses and teaching hundreds of others how to do the same, and I've condensed it all into my book, The Home Turf Advantage. It's your comprehensive guide designed to help you create your own e-commerce business. And you can grab your copy today at htabook.com.
Stay connected by subscribing to the podcast. This way you'll never miss an episode packed with valuable insights. And if you enjoyed what you heard today, please leave us a review. Your feedback motivates us, and we love sharing our favourite reviews on future episodes.
And thank you for deciding to spend your time with us today. We really appreciate you, and we look forward to sharing more high-ticket dropshipping insights with you on our next episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast.